Good hour of the day to you. I'm Alex, and today we're going to be talking about marriage. Really, specifically, why marriage is important. And now, just to get this out of the way, because I have to, I have some claim to talk about this, because if I'm being honest, I've never been married. I've never even been in a relationship. And so there'll be a lot of people that might say, well, what right do you have to talk about marriage, right? And I don't talk about marriage from the perspective of somebody who was in it, but from the perspective of somebody who was still affected by one anyway, right? I don't say was because it's not like it's something you grow out of, but I am one of the kids who grew up in a household where their parents' marriage didn't last. In fact, into pretty early into it. And so I've seen the effects that say divorce or the negative impacts the way that people view marriage nowadays really does have on society and the next generation moving forward. And so before you just dismiss me, I'd urge you to at least listen to me and, decide for yourself what you think. I'm not saying take my viewpoints step for step, but, maybe you'll find something in what I say that actually resonates and hits true at some level. But, let's go ahead and get into it. See, marriage is important because it's like the basic structure, right? Marriage is a bond that has lost a lot of meaning over time. At one point in time, it was a serious commitment, and it's devolved into nothing more than tax breaks and swinger parties. It used to be a serious commitment of love between two people, and now it's nothing more than a piece of paper and a couple of parties. It's not a coincidence that 50% of marriages end in divorce anymore when more and more people spend their time living life instead of settling down and having families, and spend their youth chasing the best of the best in terms of partners and situations instead of finding somebody and sticking with them. Marriage was never about finding the best you could ever get. It was about finding somebody that you could love for the rest of your life and sticking by them faithfully. I'm not sure at what point it became considered mainstream to only ever consider a commitment when it was with the best person you could find, or when the tables flipped so that exclusivity in marriage, dating to marry with one person was out. But I'd wager it happened around the same time the internet took off. And moreover, I'd say it was accompanied by a complete moral bankruptcy and lack of respect for our fellow human beings, right? Nowadays we like to look around and say that this is the best society it's ever been, and we have more respect for each other than it's ever been. And, in some ways that's true. In some ways we do, but in a lot of ways we don't. How can we say that we're like a good or moral society, which is what we should, strive for? When we can't even decide that we don't want to emotionally destroy the people we say we love most in the world by leaving them after 10 years. How can we say there's any good in society when the feelings and lives of others are just expendable assets in our own individual pursuit for personal satisfaction, status, and wealth? How can we say that we are taking our society, our countries, our world in a positive direction when we can't even come together to make sure that kids have parents that love and care for them? There may be a good number of people in the world who believe it just doesn't matter. That the nature of the human species is to explore these relationships and never settle for any less. And if they don't plan on having kids, then why does it matter? But do the people that never settle down have an impact on those that do? Having children is a personal choice that nobody else can make for you. But when society gets overrun with people who have no intention of having children, of course that will rub off on the people who end up having them. Young mothers will be pushed to find men to take care of them and their children even better. Young fathers will be encouraged to leave their families to pursue real love. But young children will be left without loving parents in a stable home environment, merely at the whims of the parents' desires and relationships that week. As long as people are sexually active, people will also have children. That's just a matter of fact of life. The only way to prevent this is for people to only recreate within marriage, but that's just not something that's ever going to happen in today's society, at least not on a large scale. So in order to actually create families that children can feel safe and loved in, it's necessary for the parents to at least commit to one another, no matter the difficulties, in order to commit to the lives of their children as well. If not for the sake of their own security, for the sake of their own children. Now, I'm in no way condoning people staying in abusive marriages. In those cases, by all means leave. People should not have to endure domestic abuse. However, if the only reason that two people can't stay together is because they keep cheating, they need to examine what they mean by commitment. If the reason two people can't stay together is an inability to communicate, they need to work on themselves, not finding comfort elsewhere. And if the only reason two people can't be together is a want for something more, they need to seriously look at growing with another person and not separate from them. All of what I said up until now isn't to mention or hit on the spiritual impacts that marriage brings to the table. Up until now, I've kept the talk to worldly and social problems so that anybody listening could hear some arguments without me bringing up spirit, faith, God, or any related matter. If you're not interested in the rest, I wish you would hear me out, but I respect your decision and have a nice day. For anybody still here, any talk of marriage isn't complete without spiritually defining it. Marriage isn't about a ceremony or anything in terms of spirit. I would argue spiritual marriage has almost everything to do with union, or other words, sex. Nowadays, people don't really take sex all that seriously at all. They tend to sleep around with anybody they want, whenever they want. Unless they're a guy, then they tend to sleep with anybody they can. Now, there are exceptions, not enough to make generalizations, but different men and women do exist, just in rather short supply, and most of them are shamed for even having beliefs of the sort. Marriage, in this sense, is about the joining and entanglement of souls from the act. That's why it's so important to be careful with who you choose to lay with. You could literally be giving away a part of yourself that you'll never see again. You could be mixing your spirit with energies that you might find difficult, if not impossible, to rid yourself of. If I must wager a guess, this is the kind of sexual promiscuity that the Bible warns against. The rules of the Bible tend to exist not to condemn, but to protect us. We merely need to try to understand why. Now, the Bible likely includes many different definitions or meanings for the term, but the underlying message more than likely has something to do with protection from this mixing of souls, right? And finally, I know we live in a society based around the concept of money, but please, can we stop marrying people for nothing more than, financial security? I'll be the first to admit, the only reason my parents got married was because my dad had a good paying job. Is that right? Or just? I can't say it is. And I'm here today because of it, but it doesn't change the fact that my parents' marriage fell apart before their children could even make it to their first school. So if the only reason you're marrying is for money, leave it, because it'll never last in a fulfilling way. Chances are, not only will the both of you get hurt, but so will your children. This is kind of a shorter one. I didn't, that's really a hit on what I had to say, and I don't really have any more to say on it, but I just wanted to get that out there because I feel like it's important, because I think we just need to have more respect for marriage as a whole, as a society, right? And maybe we could learn to, I don't know, I don't want to say I've given up, but I'm waiting in, I guess, God's time, and I'm not sure when that will appear, or if it'll appear. I have to accept that maybe I'm not meant to, and be able to accept that and be okay with it, right? It's not up to me to decide. I'm leaving it, in God's hands if I ever find somebody, and if I don't, then that's just what it is too. I don't have I don't have the stuff, right? I'm not a popular guy on social media. I'm not the best looking guy in the world. People say I'm not, that ugly, but, it's not shown out in the real world. I'm not the most talkative. You can probably tell from listening to me on here. I'm not the best with words, and I can easily express what I have to say with a lot of different words. And so when it's all right in front of me and with complex ideas, sometimes it's a lot easier. But when I'm just sitting in front of somebody and we're trying to talk about feelings or making it simple or making it easy, that's not me. That's not me. And the issue is that's what people want. It's what women want. And if that's just not me, then that's just not me. And there's nothing I can really do about it except that it's not meant. Although I'm not so arrogant or foolish to believe that I know everything that's going to happen in my future. And I'm not so arrogant and foolish to believe that I've already set down a path to where I'll never find anybody. Because, when you really break it down and look at it, it's kind of ridiculous to say you'll never find anybody or that you'll never have kids. Because if you think about it, from whenever the first human began, you don't even have to set a date, but we can all agree that at some point in the past there was a first human, right? And every single human being on the planet today has been descended from that one person, and you are the latest in a long, unbroken evolutionary line that has led to where we are now through union of spirit, right? Through two spirits mixing, and if you want to go the spirit route, or just the plain old boring sexual reproduction route, if that's what you want. But either way, it's happened for every single one of your ancestors. And I'm not talking to most people. Most people know this. Most people don't think about this like I do. But if anybody listening needs to hear it, then just, don't just act like you're down and out. Maybe don't worry so much about getting it, because modern people, people like to throw, because a lot of people like to throw off on one side or the other. Modern people, man, men and women, they're both to blame. They feed each other. But yeah, I'm going to stop talking before I make an even bigger fool of myself. I've been Alex. This has been the Lost Souls Podcast. If you found it or this helped you, I'm glad. You could like it. Maybe subscribe if you like it more, or if you'd like to see more. I'm not picky. I'm going to put this stuff out there either way. And, if you did see this, thanks for watching, really. And I pray that you have a blessed rest of your day. Peace.